Hey, Jim, welcome to Voices in Transformation. I'm going to jump right in and ask you, from your perspective, what do you think are the biggest operational pressures that 3PL leaders are facing today?
Great question, Maria. I think that 3PLs today are facing, time constraint pressures from their clients that are unprecedented as far as speed and being able to react and change their processes to map to, what the client wants. And I'm sure we'll get into it in more detail, but what maybe used to be differentiators a couple of years ago or a few years ago, they're just now table stakes. 3PLs have to be able to react
Yeah.
very quickly.
One of the things that I consistently hear from logistics leaders is that customer expectations have really shifted dramatically, right? And like you were saying, 3PLs are expected to be faster, more flexible, and far more transparent than ever before. So, how have those expectations changed, and what pressure does that put on logistics providers?
Yeah. I think it's just really contracted. It's really condensed, right? What used to be maybe you had a few weeks or months, now it's hours and days. And the 3PLs are kind of in the middle of it. So the client's expectations from their end customers have really collapsed. And so they're just pushing that onto the 3PLs. I think one of the things that's really interesting about it when you're a logistics provider is that um, you have that pressure to react, and you have to be really good at it. And then you multiply that by, how many ever clients you have. Because in our world, at least in my world, so a lot of this content we're talking about today
Hmm.
is all around multi-client 3PLs. So
Yeah.
they've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 different operations they're running in a facility. And that just creates kind of an exponential factor on trying to deal with all these different clients and their demands.
But then we layer on top of that the complexity of the world that we're living in today, right? So, what do you think are the operational challenges that make running a modern 3PL so difficult? And as I ask that question, I think to myself, it's a bit of a loaded question because there's just so much going on. But let's dive into some of those operational challenges.
Well, so I think it is a continuation from the last comment. I've got operations now that are dealing with uh, just a much wider variety of products because I got, again, a dozen clients that I'm dealing with. So it's all their different products and the characteristics of their products inside of a single facility. I've got, one or multiple automation subsystems now that I've brought into the operation, and I'm trying to create value and efficiency so that I can, pass some of that on to my end client. Or
Mhm.
as a logistics provider, I should be able to, enjoy a little bit of extra profit. I know they work on razor thin margins, but you have all of that physical demands of the different types of products, and then you got the facility constraints that you always have, right? So I'm dealing with, all of a sudden, one of my clients has got a big influx of product or
Mhm.
orders, and it does impact other clients in that same facility. You have to be able to figure out how to keep that flow going throughout the entire operation, not just an operation for a client.
And that's a bit of a headache to juggle all those things, isn't it? I
Yes.
know some of the work that you guys have done with logistics providers. You talk a lot about the fact that successful 3PLs need a new set of operational superpowers, which, by the way, I
Mhm.
love. I love that idea. But what are those capabilities? The ones that separate the best performing 3PLs from the rest. Could you speak a little bit more towards that?
Yeah, I think the best performing 3PLs have they've really come to terms with, they are really a solution provider, not just a logistics provider. That's, I think, the kind of the mindset that has shifted. So when I think about some of our most advanced and capable partner customers versus some of the less, the difference I see is they've established a digital organization inside their
Hmm.
3PL. They've established, engineering inside their 3PL. They've established, so they've got all of that, those different camps of expertise from automation and systems to engineering, and so they can look at their different clients and what their clients are demanding, and they can, synthesize that into an overall solution set. And I've talked about it at times as being, it's very analogous to a product management structure in a software company, right? We have product management. We look at all the different demands. We look at what our competitors do. We look at what our customers are demanding and what vertical markets we want to enter. And then that creates a roadmap of what you're doing. The best 3PLs, they're road mapping, but that roadmap includes not only the digital solution, but then it includes the automation. It includes, some physical building characteristics, and they aggregate their clients together in best class workflows. That's what I really see differentiating the good ones.
That's an interesting point. Let's focus on the tech for a second, on technology, because
Mm.
a lot of organizations right now are looking to modernize, aren't they, their operations with new technology. But unlike other companies, 3PLs are really managing multiple clients, right? They've got different workflows, like you say, and constant operational change. So, what makes technology decisions particularly complex for a 3PL organization?
Yeah, well, your question kind of outlined it. You've got multiple clients, so you've got multiple different business influencers coming in to your solution set. And as the 3PL, and with us as your partner, or whoever your partner is that's helping provide solutions, you have to manage that all and kind of play air traffic control through all those different demands and things, because the software solutions are getting so much better and so much more adaptable, flexible, and malleable, but that still has ramifications throughout your process, change management. So even though you can turn switches and throw dials and do all kinds of things very rapidly, doesn't mean you should, or doesn't mean if you do, you won't cause impact. So um, I think what it boils down to is, as a technology platform, again, you're looking at um, understanding, synthesizing the demand your customer have, and then working that into a workable schedule that then goes into your operation. Your operation can consume. So I'm a very big philosophical believer in the operation. The operational people are those. They're really the kings and queens in the whole royal court of a 3PL. And everything about what Softeon tries to do is make sure that we give them what they want, which is they're looking for changes and movement very quickly, but when they want it and on the schedule they want it. No operations VP, no head of distribution, no head of supply chain I've ever met anywhere says, "Oh, sure, just throw in all kinds of new feature function, on a every 2 week schedule. I'll just, yeah, I want to come in Monday morning and have new things." That is not the world, and I don't know that that'll ever be the world, but I can guarantee you it's not the world today.
Okay, let's move from the technology, element of it all, or just the technology, and let's talk about value. Because one of the challenges with technology and logistics is that it often takes years, doesn't it, before companies see any real value. But we know that 3PLs don't really have the luxury of waiting that long. So, how important is it to get speed to value when deploying warehouse and fulfillment technology?
Yeah, yeah, it's super important. If it's probably number 2 right below, being a really industrial grade solution, and by industrial grade, I mean, uh, it's up 7, 24, 365, really predictable, really bulletproof, right? There should be components to your solution that are, um, very proactively watching, monitoring, making sure your goal is never have a problem. Or as a partner to all of the companies we do business with, my stated goal to them is, if there's any kind of problem, if there's any kind of slowdown, if there's any kind of issue, I want to always know about it before
Mm.
you do. I have all the sensing in, so that's the top, and then right below that is being able to um, uh, flexibly change and adapt to what your clients need to do, and do it in days. We're on pace with some of our customers where they're looking at requests coming in from their clients. The clients are introducing new
Mm.
products, they're introducing new workflows, whatever it is. It's just a constant flow of demand, and we will look at the things that they're doing together, and they'll do a once a week, like a every Wednesday kind of schedule release of pieces to go into their production environments. It's that level of
Mm,
pace. Some are once a month, some are, but it can be that frequent on a schedule, and they're looking to be very surgical about it, which is very different than I think a lot of
yeah.
other kinds of solution providers out there in the markets.
Okay, let's get some examples, right? I mean,
Yep.
without naming any names, if you prefer, can you give us any kind of example of a logistics provider that you've worked with that faced any kind of significant operational challenge, and what changed when they approached it differently?
Well, I'll give you one really good example of um, one of our partners, customers. I like calling them partners, but it's probably maybe a little overused. But one of our partners out there, they were really looking at and really aggressive about trying different types of automation technology.
Hmm.
And in one set of picking operations, it was actually quite fantastic because of the characteristics of the product and the characteristics of the order. There was just a tremendous value proposition. So the use case was really it was 1.2, 1.3 average lines per order, and there was a very condensed SKU set. 2 dozen different SKUs. So in that type of environment, the way we set it up was we would do forward replenishment of pallet quantities into like a triple wide aisle that was, if you can just envision it, was
Hmm.
lined with pallets and goods to robots would just come roll up and would queue up, and the pickers were in there next to the pallets, just on 6 bins, boom, 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 and you could not you could it'd be hard pressed to find an operation that was that well, designed for that kind of picking. But then I've seen, big dance floors of, robotics trying to pick and pull when there's a much bigger variety, and this is in the same partner
Mm,
customer, trying to pull a big variety of SKUs that have maybe some characteristics of first in, first out. So there's some business rules that are kind of constricting a little, and the
yeah.
throughput was really quite, you know, poor. And you have that kind of um, dichotomy going on in these operations, and you have to be able to. So back to the speed, you have to be able to put in a robotic subsystem or an automation subsystem. You have to test it out. You have to understand the characteristics coming in, and then you have to be able to adapt and
Of
either
course.
tune it or move on from it. And that's I see a lot of operations where they feel like they've made a capital investment and they don't really want to move on from it, and it's just probably not the right choice for them.
And speaking of investment, what do you think if you were advising a 3PL CEO today, what's the one capability or investment they should prioritize right now?
Well, I would make sure above anything else that I probably had some high quality industrial engineering kind of leadership in my organization, because that's where it really flows from, right? If you think
Hmm.
about the operation, you're looking at the business rules, you're looking at the constraints of product, you're looking at facility constraints. I would make sure I had that capability, because then that will kind of trickle down or cascade down into finding a solution set that is tailored for the demands you have.
Yeah.
I personally think Softeon's highly tailored for multi-client 3PLs. It's just kind of our heritage, and one that will adapt and be, not only a solution for today but for tomorrow and 6 months from now. It's really what you have to find with a partner.
Jim, I want to thank you for being part of Voices in Transformation, and I look forward to seeing the journey.
Maria, it's really been a great use of time. I enjoyed having the conversation.